but we conform because we get tired of fighting. So it's easy just to be the angry Black woman at work than it is to try to go around and diminish who you are just so that you could be accepted and fit in.
So with that like being said, like when in your career, in your tenure at Landrum & Brown, did you know like, all right, this is limiting my abilities. You know what I mean? Like I can do so much more than what I'm doing here. And at what point did you know like I'm gonna leave Landrum & Brown and create AeroStar?
So a part of it is the confidence that I've always had, some that is just born in me. Like I've always been the kid that, oh, you can't tell her nothing. She's gonna have to learn the hard way. You understand what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
I no, trust me, I know exactly what you're talking about right now.
Because when I know what I know, you're not gonna be able to change my mind. And if you say something that piqued my interest and might be able to get me to consider something different, then we on the right track. It might be a way for us to have a conversation. But for me, going through at Landrum & Brown, I had the most amazing experience, being accepted, being validated. Uh, had an incredible white male advocate, again, which I said I don't believe I could be without.
Right. Right.
But when I started hitting the marks that I was hitting professionally, making the money, having a corner office with a view, buying a house, buying a car, doing everything that everybody told me that would make me happy. And I go back out into my community and there's no change. Go back out to talk to kids about aviation and they think I'm a celebrity because I know how to fly an airplane. And I'm like, this should be normal. I shouldn't be you shouldn't think higher of me because I know how to fly a plane.
Exactly.
Anybody can fly a plane. It's a skill set. It takes practice.
Yep.
And at Landrum & Brown, there have been other minorities that had gone before me and started their own businesses. So I always had that in my head, like, you know what? I can always consult for self, because consulting, like I said, was different than anything I have experienced. I'm literally getting paid for the thoughts that come into my head. I had never heard of that before. Like a lawyer, you get paid for them to know the law, but you get paid for them to understand and execute the law on your behalf, whether you're wrong or right. That's you paying for that brain. And at Landrum & Brown, as I began to grow in the company, as I began to be called on for particular projects, I was the only person in the history of the company, nationwide, even globally, that switched departments. And I switched departments 3 times. First started, I was in facilities and operations. Then I moved out, back downtown. We moved downtown to the office, and then I became. Went into the environmental practice, working on environmental stuff, like I showed you in the book, all environmental projects. And then I went into management. I became the business manager. And that was when I saw that I was managing a $10 million contract that had minority and woman-owned business participation goals that we were struggling to meet, like most aviation companies, because there aren't any aviation Black-owned or female-owned companies. There are many in the world, let alone in Chicago, right?
Yeah.
So I'm looking to see if anybody knows anything about government contracting or municipal contracting. There are goals that they have to meet for minority-owned businesses, disadvantaged businesses, and female businesses. And I was managing the contract that had those minimum requirements on there. And that's when it hit me, like, I'm a woman, I'm a minority, I need to start a company, because I can help this firm meet their goals by providing meaningful aviation work as a Black female-owned business. And when I also realized that there had never been a woman in the C-suite in the 50-year history of the company, what was I supposed to do with that? Fight another 20 years to be the first, fight another 10 years to be the first, when with the stroke of a pen and some paperwork and about $15 to the Secretary of State, I made myself a CEO overnight.
Just one question while we're still on the Landrum & Brown kind of topic. I read that they worked on projects with noise abatement. Was that
Yeah,
something that you worked on too?
absolutely.
So
So
I'm curious, like, can you just like, because that's something like that like kind of like interests me. So can you just like go more in depth on that noise abatement?
So you as an aviator, you know that we're trained through the Federal Code of Regulations, CFR 14. It's all the Federal Code of Regulations for aviation specifically, and
Right.
it's all separated in parts. So part 150 is all about noise and noise abatement. And when you're looking at part 150, you have to understand that there are rules and regulations that have been set up for environmental protections around noise pollution, which is what it's actually called. When aircraft, inbound and outbound aircraft increase noise pollution around residential areas, the airport is required to meet federal guidelines to reduce the noise. Okay, so not just for residents, but for schools.
Mm.
And so the Chicago Department of Aviation created um, a noise program that included residential noise monitoring, school noise monitoring, as well as airport noise monitoring. So maybe this is the nerd geek stuff now, right? So noise is measured in decibels.
Hmm.
And so decibel levels were being recorded, and any decibel level that went outside of what the normal acceptable federal range would have to be taken care of. So with the introduction of a new aircraft to a fleet, for example, when I was just getting out of college, the 777 was a new airplane.
Right.
What does the 777 noise footprint look like? Well, guess what? The people who developed those engines and did all of the stress testing and flight testing on those aircraft, they have all of that data. They can tell us how much noise the airplane is going to bring into O'Hare, and then you can multiply that time how many airlines are operating that aircraft
Right.
and bringing that aircraft into O'Hare. What time of day they bringing them into the into the airport? Because daytime noise is not as loud as nighttime noise because everything gets quiet. So you
Hmm.
imagine so at nighttime they created something called the Fly Quiet program, which would celebrate or recognize airlines who flew quietly. And the way that we did this is that we developed flight paths that would redirect air traffic over non-residential areas. So they wouldn't fly a straight approach into the airport at night, or they wouldn't do a direct ascent out of O'Hare, depending on which runway they was coming from to a specific heading. We could actually redirect them to take off, but landing was more important, but take off over certain fly quiet pathways. And so they actually would have to fly this line in the sky of where they could actually take off. So it was a fly quiet approaches and fly quiet departures. And we would have to run a report every month on those fly quiet approaches. And you could see when somebody deviate. And then you could see the number of calls that came in from community members that's like, FedEx plane just flew over my house. I know it was FedEx. I could see the purple. And you just like, but
Oh
when you
my
go
God.
look up the flight track data, you can see that airplane.
Yeah, sure enough.
If the flight track go this way, you can see them be like, nope, I'm not going this way and then that way. I'm going this way. And they would get a letter saying you did not adhere to the fly quiet guidelines. And really quickly with the residential sound and school sound insulation program, this was two parts for me because I worked on it before the O'Hare modernization, which was the reconfiguration of the runways.
Hmm.
And once you reconfigure runways, you do what? You reconfigure the direction of where the noise is going to be.
Right.
Because instead of airplanes taking off and landing this way, now
You
they all going this
different
way and
path.
that way.
Exactly.
So the houses over here to the east and west, they gonna start complaining. So
Mhm.
we had to do projections of where the noise would be based on the time of the flights, based on the OAG data, the official airline guide data, as well as the fleet mix, the aircraft type that would be flying into the airport at different times of day. And that's how we were able to predict what the noise models for O'Hare would be before and after the runway reconfigurations. And within those models, we had to decreased the decibel levels inside homes and schools to a measured amount that was below XYZ decibels. And if it went above those decibels, that house in that school would qualify for free sound insulation, which means they got new windows, new doors, sometimes new roof, new HVAC system.
Wow.
The O'Hare International Airport, Chicago Department of Aviation, and Midway Airport, don't forget about Midway, had to pay to renovate homes and schools that the impact of noise pollution exceeded what was federally allowed in Part 10 CFR Part 105, Part 150.
See, that's so much more than like I would ever think noise abatement could be, you know.
A whole career. People have whole careers in one section of the FAR code. And this is why it's so important for us to talk about careers in aviation. Everybody think just being a pilot is where it's at.
Exactly, and that's
I know people that make six figures measuring noise for airports. Construction companies that only do sound insulation for homes and schools. They get $1 million contracts.
the money's out there. It's out there.
Who would have known? Noise abatement, right?
Right.
I worked noise abatement for 5 years. And that's when I wound up being in the client's office. Like my supervisor told me I would never be.
When we were at the To See Next program, I remember you saying that one of your goals was to be in space. Do you remember that? Was that still one of your goals, or am I?
It's still one of my goals, and it becomes more and more of a reality every day. That commercial space flight grows. I hope that it happens in my lifetime, that I would be able to take a commercial flight up with some of my students to show that space is real, that the future of space is going to include African Americans and women, is going to look diverse. I think it's going to be really important for us to not just watch what's going to happen with Mars colonization, but also watch what's going to happen. Like Space Force is a real thing now.
Yeah.
Because of the last president, where we actually defending the atmosphere outside of Earth. And so it's really important to me that space stays on the radar. And you'll see it coming back. Now that once I mention it, you're gonna see it all the time, and you're probably gonna text me like, Miss Holmes, it's everywhere. Start watching commercials. Space is on so many commercials now. They just put in space in anywhere. I think I may have seen a commercial for a razor or something, and they like in space, and I'm like, okay, zero gravity razor shaving. I like, what is that?
Right.
But I think we're moving into the next generation space race like we had in the 50s, where we're going to be competing on which nation is going to land on Mars, have humans land on Mars first. And with the launch and the groundbreaking mission of SpaceX at the end of last year, that was incredible. For SpaceX, a private citizen like myself who started their own aviation company that wanted to put some money into, making rockets and going to space, actually contracted with NASA to take the first humans to the International Space Station for the first time since Space Shuttle Endeavour and the Space Shuttle program was retired in 2011. What? People don't even realize we've been hitching a ride with Russia, a private space company who just started building rockets in a hangar that he bought somewhere. It's game over. To me, now, I was like, I'm going. Think about what our grandparents and our great-grandparents saw in their lifetime. To go from the invention of cars to flying an airplane from New York to London in 2.5 hours, 3 hours. To landing on the moon from the beginning of aviation in 1903 to 1968, 1969. What? Commercial space flight tickets are really expensive, but I believe, God willing, somebody's gonna bless me with a free ticket, and like I usually get blessed with, and they're gonna see the need for me to be in space as a representation of what the future of aviation needs to be, and how AeroStars and students and individuals that engage with, the L.S.C Club should be seeing and visualizing for the future of space.
All right, here's my last question, and this is probably like my most important question right here. So when I look at you, I see a woman, who really got it out the mud and built themselves up, from the ground up. You know what I mean? So from my point of view, you've made it. You're at the top of the top. You've made it. You know what I mean? So as a successful entrepreneur, how do you, stay hungry and stay motivated in your field? Being at the top.
It's because I don't agree with what you just said. I haven't made it to you. I haven't made it. It's so, I feel like every day, like look, now, this all my post-it notes on my desk. This stuff got to get done. This is all, like, I feel like I'm in shambles 90% of the time, and I still show up, every day, keep grinding. I'm supposed to have written 3 books by now. I'm supposed to have started my podcast 7 years ago, supposed to have had, made my first million, supposed to have my Bentley Bentayga parked out in the yard. Like, and it's not about the stuff for me, because if I really wanted to be wealthy, I would have stayed in corporate.
Mm-hmm.
I was there. That's when I thought I made it, bringing in almost $100,000, 28 years old, $97,000. That's more money than what my parents made in 5 years, probably. My parents.
Yeah.
So I have no clue what's next. I want to open up my own facility specifically for aviation and aerospace education and training from kindergarten to career. I want to be able to sell our curriculum and get it in the hands of public school teachers all over the country. I want to be able to make documentaries and tell our stories, like Bessie Coleman, the real story of Bessie Coleman, not the sugar-coated version, but that she actually was the first woman in the world to get an international pilot's license. And she did it 2 years before Amelia Earhart. But Amelia Earhart is America's pilot.
Right.
Bessie Coleman, most kids still don't even know who she is. And so, and the fact that the mechanic that she had mysteriously had took off to work that day, and then she falls out of an airplane in the middle of a show. No, I think it's a whole lot wrong with the way that we're telling our story. And for the French to release a documentary before America did tells you everything you need to know about how we embrace women and Black women in STEM and in aviation. So I got so much more to do. I have so much more to do. I feel like every moment that I'm not where I want to be, it's another young Nile out there that haven't heard about the gospel of aviation. Mm-hmm. Like, this can save you. This will change your life. This will transform you. This will get you to where you want to be for generations. This will take you and your family. This is going to get you that house that you want to buy for grandma, Right. That all of the NBA players, I'm about my mama house. Well, you could buy your mother house with a career in aviation. Exactly. So I don't think I made it. All of these awards in my office, on my wall is covered with awards. That has not equated to the fact that I still have to advocate for a seat at the table, at the highest level in government and policy. When I go on Capitol Hill, I'm there representing you guys. I'm there talking to my senators and my congressmen and our state representatives about what they're going to do to make sure that another one of my students don't get killed, that another one of my family members don't go to jail, that another one of people that look like me and come from where I come from don't get abused by the police. So it's a lot to do. Me making it, I don't know if that's ever gonna happen, because I can't stop. I cannot stop. And even every time I try to quit, I get a text message saying, Ms. Holmes, you changed my life. I just want to let you know I'm flying at Quincy University, and if it wasn't for you, I don't know where I would be. Miss Holmes, I deployed for Japan today. I'm assigned to a helicopter unit. You know, I can't thank you enough for all of the investment that you put in me. Miss Holmes, I know I have ADHD, but I just scored a 36 on the ACT because you gave me the confidence to be able to finish that. Get these text messages, and now I'm on fire. I'm not make every last one of those I just gave you happened since February. I get these text messages all the time. So I can't stop because I got 1,000 kids in the pipeline now where 10 years ago I had 50.
Yep.
So all of my little arrow sparks, it's game over. I'm sending the army of little Afro aviators into the industry, and they're gonna be unstoppable. The world is changing. They're gonna be a cut above the rest, not because of their skin color, but because of the determination and intelligence and the fortitude that we've instilled in them from the beginning.
I feel like I could run through like a brick wall right now. I feel like I can do anything. But like, no, like in all seriousness, you know, thank you for taking the time, you know, to talk, you know, with me and, you know, just be, you know, open to even doing this. You know, I really do appreciate it. And, you know, I'm going to look back on this and be like, you know, this was one of the most like legendary interviews I probably will ever do. So honestly, thank you.